Hi guys. Well, I love talking about tools, so I got a little series going on called my cool tools because I love talking about tools that I find that just work. Well, this one's going to be a little different. I was talking to my Snap-on rep the other day. Him and I are really close, good buds, and I mentioned that I'm doing the YouTube thing, trying to make an attempt of it, all that jazz. And then at the end of it, after him wishing me luck and all that, he said, don't badmouth Snap-on, don't give Snap-on a hard time, whatever. He knows I love Snap-on tools. So, of course, I can't help but make a video. Let's rip on some of the tools that I can't stand. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Snap-on. I hate how much it costs. That's not to say that everything Snap-on is fantastic, as you'll find out. Nor is it to say that everything has to be a Snap-on tools. There's plenty of other brands out there, Astro Pneumatic, shall we say, Nipex or Knipex, however you want to pronounce it. There's plenty of other brands out there, a lot of them much cheaper than Snap-on, that make a better product for a certain tool. And then there are certain tools that just, the Snap-on one is just a league of its own, so much better than everyone else. And then, it's personal preference. You don't need Snap-on regular sockets. You really don't. You know what? I had a cheap set of no-name sockets that I used for years. I still have them at home, and guaranteed I could have still had them for decades to come. I ended up getting most of my Snap-on regular sockets that I got second, third hand, and I got wicked deals on them. I couldn't justify $300 on a single set. Like, these, I'm getting off topic. But let's address the price. Just these 1/4 inch deep sockets, I think they're like $180. That's just the deeps. Could I justify that? No. But anyways, some of the stuff is amazing, but some of the stuff is, my main takeaway on Snap-on stuff is they get it 90% phenomenal, but that one stupid, super simple thing, they just drop the ball on. So let me talk about a few of the things that kind of drive me nuts. Since I was talking about the Snap-on 1/4 inch deeps, now this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is a thing about these that kind of made me, They have, let me grab the 10. So Snap-ons, what they have in any of the kind of high-end tool brands is the hex of the socket on, say, a deep, or any of them really, only goes so far in. And then you just have an open channel for a stud. So if you have a bolt, do I have one without a washer on here? One second. There we go. Okay, we're back. So to make the demonstration, initially I was going to use this bolt. It's not really a fair comparison because it's got the washer, but we use this one that has no washer, no flange at all. So any of the high-end tool brands, what they'll have in their deep sockets is the hex only goes so far, as you can see there, right? That way it'll hold the bolt, or more importantly, it'll hold a nut right there, so you can thread a nut on. Whereas your cheapies, the hex goes the whole way through, so 13, 12, oh, these are standards. Where are my cheapies? Yeah, I thought I was organized, but apparently I'm not. So 13, 11, 10. So, it'll go all the way in there, right? That's one of the big differences between your cheap sockets and your high-end sockets. Another difference too, might be a little less noticeable. The cheaper sockets what they'll do, instead of each size being its own shell, its own outer diameter, they have certain sizes, and then they'll just kind of machine them on the inside. So as you get, I don't know if you can see this, but this one here is particularly noticeable how thick this wall is. So rather than making tooling to have this size socket be its own its own shell, its own tool with a smaller outer diameter, they just kind of double them up. What that means is you start getting thicker sockets, and you know what, that you might find a time when that might become a hindrance. You might not have room for it. Whereas the snap-on sockets, they're all kind of uniform thickness. But more to the point of the story of these, when you buy your set of high-end sockets to replace these, everything's hunky-dory, but guess what? You can't throw these away. You still need these. One of the things that I like using my deep sockets for, the 1/4 inch, is I'll use these for brake bleeders. If I'm cracking a rusty brake bleeder, I much prefer using a 6-sided socket than a wrench. Well, a lot of brake bleeders, this won't go deep enough because they got the outer part, the bleeder part, so it hits here, and then the hex of the bleeder doesn't actually hit the socket yet, it's above it. So I still have to keep my cheapy sockets, even though I got these expensive snap-ons. That's kind of a minor point because, you know, having the hex there, that does serve a purpose, right? Whereas these things here, you're not using these to start a nut. You have to use a shallow socket to start a nut and then go to these, right? So kind of give Snap-on a pass on that. But since we were talking about those, let's start with those. One of the other things that is universally agreed upon, as far as I know, the only person who disagrees with me is my Snap-on rep. Snap-on Torx sockets are junk. Absolutely junk. Again, I got these because I got these third hand for stupid cheap. These things twist so bad. Now granted, they are warrantyable. You know, before I had Ultra Pros and things like that, and well, I had a really hard time finding anyone that actually warranty them. So when I broke one, I kind of have to buy another one for $10, and that did eventually add up. But I don't even use these anymore. Maybe the closest one I have is this. I don't even know if that will focus or if you can see the twist on that. But you try using these on an impact and they just twist. The flutes of the Torx bit just twist right away. Junk. Then you end up using your cheap, no-name Harbor Freight quality tool, and it works just fine. They don't break. They don't. Snap-on tries to say that the reason they do that is to make them a little more malleable so that they don't break. At least you can get that last use out of them when they're twisted without them breaking. But yeah, don't buy Snap-on's regular Torx sockets, in my opinion. Their upgraded ones are a little bit better, but still not a fan. One of the things I am a fan of, these guys. They call them torque adapters. I absolutely love these. I use these so much. 1,001 different ways that these things can save your butt. They are wonderful. I have the complete set from 10 or 8 all the way up to 22, as well as the 9/16 because some transfer cases are 9/16, they're not 14 mils. Anyways, these I will be making a separate video on because they are amazing. I saw them on the truck and I thought to myself many times, like, you know, those probably would be awesome. I kept seeing them. And then eventually I bought some and oh boy, are they amazing. But remember when I said there's that one thing that they just drop the ball on? Here we have a cheap wrench. One of the things that's nice about cheap wrenches is you can cut them in half, you can modify them, do what you need to, right? You don't really want to cut up a $50 snap-on wrench. But if you can see that, that's solid metal. Well, one of the reasons why I bought these torque adapters is you can use them, obviously you're not using them with impacts, but you can use them with a giant ratchet. You can put an extension on there, reach from behind things, and you can put some serious torque on them. Well, if you use an extension, you got to make sure, right, that goes through there. You got to make sure it doesn't deviate. You don't put, you got to make sure you don't put a sideways load on them, because, well, this one, patoing, as I was twisting on it, putting some serious oomph behind it, I noticed that my extension was starting to go on a little bit of an angle, so it's just about to stop, and then patoing, just like that, right? Except one piece became two pieces. Now, unlike this relatively cheap wrench that's solid, these are not solid. They're that powder sintered crap. Now, I'll wake you up 1 second. I don't know how well that'll focus, but that's just chrome plated junk. Having said that, I still highly believe in these things. Again, Snap-on, you break one, they're warranted. I will still continue putting every little bit of oomph behind these that I possibly can, because they're awesome. But when I saw that, for the price of these, it's not that hard to make them solid. That's disappointing. Another thing that's disappointing, and again, I love mentioning this to my Snap-on rep because he comes up with every possible excuse as to why these need to be this way. But I got a set of these speed wrenches from a Snap-on rep. They were discontinued. I got these for a wicked price. The dealio behind them, that he said, is that they couldn't afford to make them for cheaper, and no, they're kind of a specialty thing. No one could justify the money that they were, so they became discontinued. They didn't sell enough. Now, the premise of these is they got this open kind of split jaw. You can see that. I got some filings on there. So if you got a bolt, it'll turn and just walk over it. Hopefully that's focusing. Hopefully you can see that. One of the things that this is nice with is it's quite nice with things like brake lines, right? Because you're not getting a box end around there, and sometimes you crack them loose. Obviously you're not going to want to use that to crack something loose, but sometimes you crack one of those nuts loose, and while they're still tight, you're not taking them off with your fingers. You got to wrench them the whole way, and these things are awesome with that. However, why are they that long, right? You don't need leverage on that end. As I said, you're not cracking these loose. These should be half that length, or at least 2/3 that length. Because there's a lot of times I've gone to use these and they're so long that they hit the frame, they hit something, you can't get a full swing on them. So now if I can find them, I'm willing to actually get, if I can find a cheap set of these, which one of my old bosses had a cheap set of these from some other brand. I think they were just called Accelerator. I don't know who made them. It might have been Stanley. If I could find a cheap set, I would buy a whole other cheap set just so I could cut them in half. These I can't justify cutting in half because, hey, I paid some money for them. They're nice wrenches. But they don't need to be this long. On the note of things like that, we'll talk about this ratchet by Snap-on. This is the most sadistic tool I've ever seen held in my life. It's pure evil. The person who designed this is a sadist. No ifs, ands, buts. This is the style ratchet that comes with they're shallow sockets. So right there, this is a normal 19 next to one of their shallow 19s, right? Again, this set here, there's no way I could justify spending the money on that with the cost of the set, because I think it's like 300 and change. It's nice to have once in a while. It does come in handy, but for that price, would you miss it if I didn't have it? No. But of course, they are nice. They do come in handy from time to time. And it comes with this low profile ratchet. When I first saw it, I almost wanted to say, you know what, will you sell me just that ratchet? I don't know how well that'll show. And he said he could. Well, do you see the shape of that? Right? It's trying to make it like a wrench, right? It's trying to give it that wrench feel. Well, the problem with this is you don't need the body of a ratchet. Right? You don't need the body of a ratchet to be thin, because your hand is much bigger than the body of any ratchet, right? You still need to be able to get your hand in there. And that's not what you're worried about. It's the head that you're worried about. Okay, they make a nice low profile head, but anytime you're using one of these, typically you're in a really tight spot. That fastener is usually pretty tight. Well, you're pulling on that thing with your fingers, man, by the time you get that sucker loose, your fingers, your tendons are on fire. It hurts. I'm not even joking on that. You know what? You got to get something off. There are times where you ignore pain and then afterwards you pay for it. And this is just evil. I literally want to throw it in the garbage. I hate it with a fiery passion. Yeah, but my Snap-on rep, he kicks me off the bus as soon as I start talking about that thing. Lights. These lights here, right? Again, might seem like a good idea to some engineer. They fold down like this, right? Whereas I have these Astro pneumatics, right? They don't fold down together. They just do that. Now these I've had for 3 years or so. Had a pair of them. They're a little wobbly because I abuse the ever-living snot out of these things. I smash these into spots. I am so aggressive with these. You know what? Lights tend to be annoying, and I tend to take my frustration out on lights sometimes when they fall. Yeah, I'm really hard on these things, and they work. They still work just fine. My other one, it's floppy. It doesn't hold the position like this one does. But the light still works fine. It's just as bright as it was from day one. It doesn't fade. The charge is just as good. And I alternate between the two all day long. Of an 8-hour day, these things are running for maybe at least 5 hours any given day for years. And the light part still works. Both the light on the end for the flashlight and the main light. Of course, they got the double-sided light, which is, in my opinion, completely useless, but they held up. Now, these things here, I've had a few iterations of these, right? This is the big, long one, and it's the same kind of, well, the early ones had a light on top as a flashlight. This one doesn't, but not really the end of the world. I usually have my flashlight on me. But they fold down like this. Why? Because it's a gimmick. It seems neat. The problem with that is that extreme articulation from there all the way to there. You know what that means? There's wires in there. Those wires are getting pulled that full length. These things cut out lickety-split. Not only do they cut out lickety-split, but they get damaged in there. The little plastic, right? Your fluids, your chemicals that these interact with, particularly tranny fluid, is so hard on this style plastic that these do not last. I've gone through a lot of these. I'm lucky to get a year out of them. I've had this one for a long time because I haven't used it. The other thing too about these, I find the light fades after a while. These ones here, not very bright. Hella strong magnet. These don't last very long. You know why they don't last very long? They're so strong. They also, the battery, the charge doesn't last very long, so they die. And guess what? You can't see them. You leave them up in some vehicle. Customer drives off. See you later. Or it's jammed up against some exhaust. You forget about it because it goes out. You start the vehicle, you find it later, and it's like, what's that smell? Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't buy these anymore because I think I went through about 3 or 4 of them that just left on a vehicle. Now again, a person could call that one my own stupidity. I'm not necessarily saying that's Snap-on's fault. But again, these are pricey. I find the front gets faded up. I find the light's not good enough. And you can't keep them. I generally don't like much of Snap-on's electric stuff. I won't even talk about their scan tools. There's very stupid, simple things on their scan tools that just drive me nuts. Any of their electric tools that take these kinds of batteries, throw them out, especially the 3/8 impacts. They are junk. Junk. These wouldn't even make good paperweights. Garbage. I do have this guy, the long neck 1/4 inch Snap-on electric ratchet. Paid way too much money for it. I could complain about the battery release being difficult, but you know what? The battery release on the Milwaukees, the M12s, sometimes they don't like to come out either, so you know, it is what it is. On the note of electric ratchets, I got this AC Delco. It used to say heavy duty because you know what it is, heavy duty, it's quite metal. I've had this thing for like 15 years. It still works. I'm blown away by it. It's not the most powerful thing, it's definitely not the quickest thing, but it still works, and it was cheap at the time. Even like 15 years ago, I paid $180 for it. You're not gonna see a Snap-on one last that long, that's for sure. But this guy here, I went with a Snap-on. Generally, I'm a big fan of Milwaukee. All my electric stuff is Milwaukee, except for this and that cordless ratchet there. I went with this one because I found it had a slightly lower neck, a lower profile neck than the Milwaukee. The old Milwaukee one had a similar neck to this, but they didn't have the long neck version. Of course, Snap-on being Snap-on, it's still brushed. They only just went to a brushless motor. I have this impact. I bought the first one that I bought of these. What was that rated at? 450 or so foot-pounds. It was a brushed motor. Then they went to a brushless motor at 600 foot-pounds on the setting 1, and I think it was 300 on setting 2. That was the first brushless one that came out by Milwaukee. Still have it, and that was at least 10 years ago. And Snap-on I think they only just within 2 years came out with a brushless impact for the big one. They made the 3/8 impact as a brushless maybe 5 years ago or so, but Milwaukee's had it for way before then. They are so late to adapt to new technology, and they'll come up with every stupid reason why, it needs to be this way. So yeah, it's brushed, which means don't be using it on fuel tanks. But it's a nice long neck. I can actually shove this in place. This is paid for itself. the number of times I've been able to use this on water pumps, things like that especially. Now, you might ask, why is it in this pile of junk? Because again, for the most part I like it. Don't like the price. But that one thing, remember? That one thing they bugger right up? The freaking release, or the direction change pawl on it. So once it moves, so right now it's moving pretty freely, but there are times you go to move it and it gives you arthritis trying to turn this stupid thing. Not good. The other thing too that I don't like about it, I do like it's quite fast, which is great. When you let it go, it's quite powerful. It will torque something down a lot once it's spinning. However, it's really, really, really hard to get a feel for this. It's really hard to tighten something down slowly just to a light pressure. You know, say you're putting a screw or bolt into a plastic threading, right? You don't want to, you know, like intake plenums, right? You don't want to over tighten them because you can strip them. Well, it's really hard to keep this on a low setting because before you know it, you just give it that little hair and you know, with the big impacts, we won't even mention, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know why, the Bossman still has the old style snap-on half-inch impact, and I love that he still tries to use it out there on tires, right? Maybe a little Honda Civic, sure. Anything bigger than that, no. Unless the lug nuts just came off. Useless. But, getting kind of long-winded, I know, kind of similar rants. We'll end with these things here. Now, I bought these specifically for doing front press-in wheel bearings, right? You got that snap ring. The set of pliers that I have, hopefully it won't shake you too much. I got a 5-piece snap ring set by them. These kind of size ones, right? They're actually quite good. But of course, the press-in bearing ones, kind of a 2 to 3 inch diameter, is too big for these. So I needed something bigger. And that's when I got these guys. Hey, great. You know, that's a good size. But look at the spread on that. Look how big that is, right? So I can hold that closed with one hand when it is closed. But you got a snap ring in there like that. You see the problem? Oh, so you're supposed to use 2 hands. And what? Just have another person there to press the snap ring in with a pocket screwdriver and fit it in there? No, you need to one-hand it while you can have your other hand to work it in. These things do not need to have that spread. Again, likewise, so you put your 2 hands in there, right? And then it slips off and you smash your knuckles together. I don't know how much I paid for these. I think they were $50 or so. There's been many times I've wanted to throw these in the garbage. A Bossman he's a tranny builder. He has a set of these and he's of the same opinion. He doesn't even know the last time he used his. I don't know the last time I've used these and they worked. I can tell you a lot of times where I've gone to use these and just can't do anything with them. Well, that feels therapeutic. I think that's about all that I can mention on Snap-on stuff. I know a lot of you guys out there kind of have your own opinions on Snap-on. You know what, in general, first of all, I believe everyone preference, buy what works for you. Thankfully, there's a lot of options out there. And a lot of good stuff too. Not everything's expensive. I personally like Snap-on. You know what? There's a reason why Snap-on does so well. Their products are good. For people who use them to make money all day long, right? If you're a do-it-yourself person at home, obviously you're not going to do it. You need to buy Snap-on. If you're a guy that's a flat rate tech And you know, as I was talking to my Snap-on rep the other day, he says that he knows a bunch of people that have 2 of these, so that they could have one with, you know, 2 different sockets on there, you know, a 10 mil and a 12 mil, or a 10 mil and a 13 mil, depending on if you're Asian or domestic, working on vehicles, right? I knew I forgot something. I meant to turn that thing off. Either way, maybe that's my warning. I've been talking for too long. But yeah, so you know what? If you make money, if you're working flat rate, it can pay to have the high quality tools. It can pay to have not just the high quality tools, but to have the warranty on the tools that has a guy that comes around. Because you know what? A lot of these other stores, yes, they have warranty, but maybe you don't have time after work to go to this place or to go to that place, to rush to them before they close, all that sort of stuff. Your time is money. So this video is me ragging on about certain Snap-on products. In general, I love Snap-on products. Not to say that everyone needs to have Snap-on products. Not to say that I'm going to buy everything Snap-on. But they do make some stuff that just makes you shake your head. I guess the same thing can be said for about anything. Let me know, what is your least favorite Snap-on tool? What tool you found that you just hate, that's just a pile of garbage? Would love to find out. Please leave a comment down below. I love reading all your comments. I do try to respond to as many of them as I can. So, here we go. Yeah, this one's for you, Joe. So, as always, just want to say thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.